Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey, it's Jessa. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. Thanks for joining me. So glad you tuned in. I hope you stick around ongoing through more episodes now that you've discovered the show. Today I'm talking to KaRonna Lynn, and she calls herself a liberation guide. And we're going to be talking about body image liberation. And I have done a couple of episodes about body image before. I'll probably do a couple more. It comes up so often, but she's got such a refreshing view about moving beyond our own sense of confidence and value being based on what other people think of us. And I don't know, breath of fresh air, I think. And it ties beautifully into the intimacy with ease method, because part of that process, especially in that first pillar of discover, is understanding why we're stuck and understanding the specific obstacles that we face in our sex life. And so one of those obstacles for people can be body image. And it can really, really get in the way. So I hope you're open to her message and can visualize what she pictures, what she's describing. Because at the very end of the episode, I asked her to talk about what does it really look like to be liberated? What does it feel like? What do you think? How different is that? And she painted this whole thing that, frankly, is a little hard to imagine, but boy, it would be nice. So anyway, I hope you get a lot out of the conversation, and there's contact information for her too if you decide, yeah, I want some of that. Enjoy the show. And before we start the show today, it is sponsored by Intimacy with Ease. It's a method to help otherwise happy couples achieve a sex life that is easy and fun for both of them, so that you can actually just enjoy your sex life with zero stress. For more information, if you want to watch a brief little training video that's available, all of that, go to intimacywithease.com. So, KaRonna, thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm pretty excited about this.
Yay! So first I got to ask you, what's a liberation guide? What went into choosing that as a title or description of what you do?
I really like that you asked that. So in the past couple of years, I have worked with myself. I've worked with several different kinds of coaches. And I just recently finished my master's degree, so I have a lot of different types of education, very recent in my background. And in those experiences, I found that a lot of coaches, and even in graduate school, it was very much so this is the way that you're supposed to do, this is what worked for me, this is the way you're supposed to do it, now go and copy and multiply. And there's benefits to that, but that is very much so not my approach. That does not fit with what I feel called to do at all. And my work, it typically starts with body liberation. And I chose to focus specifically on liberation because it's really a process of unfolding that impacts every area of life. And so it's really deep. Freedom is, they're synonymous words, but I feel liberation has a very deep resonance when we hear it. And guide is because I don't tell people what to do. That is very much so not the way I work. So I work with people as someone who has a lot of different experiences, has my own background, has a lot of different things to incorporate. I offer suggestions. I ask a lot of questions, and I come alongside as hey, let's explain what's going on in front of us. Which road do you want to take? Hey, let's unfold this. What's going on? Where do you want to go? That's kind of how I work, more as a tour guide.
Yeah. So you've got some input and some ideas, but you're also not like dragging people down a particular path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is really, in my belief, is really what liberation is about finding yourself and what you want and what works for you, not just following someone else's mold. And so we really have to get out of the structure and the pattern of, let me go take this course and do what this other person said and just follow their rules. We have to learn how to find it for ourselves. And that's something that many of us have to relearn how to do.
Right. And so are you working, as we dive in here, do you work with particular kinds of people and particular issues, or are you pretty general? What's the focus of your work?
Most of it ends up naturally gravitating to starting at body liberation. So people who are struggling with their body image, the way they feel about themselves, their confidence levels, self-esteem, weight, looks. But it really is like an all-encompassing. So I've talked with a lot of people and worked with a lot of people who are like doing some kind of deconstruction in their life. Maybe that's like religious deconstruction, or just, they grew up one way and they're kind of leaning a different way. And how do I, that really impacts your whole life. So,
yeah. So as a sex therapist, I hear people talk about their struggles with body image, right? And how they feel about themselves physically, whether, it's how they feel or how they look, or, it can be a huge issue for people. Really can block them from intimacy. Yeah. And, you wrote about taking sort of a three-pronged approach. Could you speak to that a little bit and how it applies and, how, especially how it intersects with sex?
Yeah. So the three-pronged approach is physical, mental, and really systemic. And so the way that those three things intersect, because that's how we develop our image of ourselves. It's based on, our physical bodies, maybe if you're in a body that has limitations, or if you're in a body that isn't represented in the norm for whatever reason. And then our mental space. So what we think about ourselves and the world around us, but then the systems and the culture that we grew up in, which is really, macro level. And they all intersect because they all form what we believe about ourselves and then how we interact with the world around us, which impacts the way we have sex, and it impacts the way that we feel about our bodies, and it impacts our families and relationships and everything. And so the reason that I really use that three-pronged approach is because as a guide, my work is, like I mentioned earlier, to help people unpack. And so we really have to understand, how did I get to where I am now? And I typically approach my work as people. I don't believe most people are broken and in need of fixing.
I don't believe any people are broken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we're all really impacted by a whole lot of crap in the world around us. And there is a way for us to get back to our truth and our core. And we just have to, unpack all of these layers. And so all three of those things then impact our relationship with sex. So what does our culture teach us about sex as a woman or as a man? What is in our thoughts from the movies that we watch, from the books we read? And then how do we relate to our physical bodies when we show up for the physical act of sex, or even think of, sex with ourselves, or even thinking about sex in general? So all three of those things influence the way that we have sex and participate in sexual activities.
So, it sounds like you start with unpacking and just sort of understanding how somebody's gotten where they are. What's the journey look like towards liberation? Like, I get you're saying everybody's journey is different. You're just sort of accompanying them along the path. But how do people change any of that?
Yeah, so that's, as you said, it is a personal journey. So it's about, where do they want to go? Where do they want to end up? So, for example, working with someone who feels really a lot of shame. So they feel a lot of shame asking for what they need, as, in any area of their life. This is going to show up in sex. This is going to show up in, their familial relationships. So if they really are like, this is what I feel like I'm supposed to do. You know, I feel a lot of shame asking for what I need because I feel like I'm not supposed to do that. So then the question becomes when they decide, I want to go on a liberation journey, I want this to change, they have to answer the question, what do you want it to change into? So what do you want it to become? How do you want to interact with the world around you? What do you feel like is your truth? And if they, you know, for a person who would say, I'm done never getting what I need. You know, I'm fed up with this. I don't want it to feel this way anymore. I'm tired of feeling like a burden. I don't want to feel this way anymore. That is how that's the journey. So, okay. So what got me there? What got me here? And then we practice. So then there's a lot of practicing along the way of here's an opportunity to practice doing that. What comes up whenever you do that? How do we reframe those thoughts? How can that person learn to interact with, say they're in a family culture, especially this happens a lot in religious, people with religious backgrounds, they feel a lot of shame asking for what they need. So how can you learn to interact with your religious upbringing if you are still a person of faith and honor what you are taught and at the same time value yourself enough to ask for what you need? And so it's really just an intentional process of like reframing as we go and practicing with that like constant support and validation of someone saying like, yes, you deserve this, you can get this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I'm also thinking, I would imagine, partly from the conversations I have, probably even just for myself, that some of the time, where do you want to get to? Well, I want to look way better. I want to lose weight. I'll be able to enjoy sex or my sexual relationship once I hit X, Y, or Z. If people are coming in with what they're aiming for, I would imagine some of the time that's not really liberation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so we unpack that. So when it'll be like, if somebody says, I want to lose weight, that is my goal. You know, if someone were to enter into a relationship with me, which just based on the content that I share and the way that I talk about things, most likely someone would probably not choose to interact with me on that level, but we would have a conversation around body image and say, okay, tell me more about your desire to lose weight so that you can have better sex. Tell me why you are associating those two things. One will lead to the other. Where did you get that idea? And kind of unpacking what's at the root here. What do you really want? Because usually it's, I just want to feel confident when I have sex.
Right.
Usually it's, I want to feel accepted. I want to feel loved. You know, there's a core feeling we're searching for, and we think this other thing will get us there.
Right.
And so the conversation I have in the beginning is, what are what's really underneath this? And then that's the thing that we go on pursuing.
Yeah. Now you mentioned if they saw what you posted, like your Instagram description or bio or whatever, right? It doesn't say, I'm going to help you lose weight or diet or, right? Like how do you describe yourself? What kind of stuff are you putting out there? So what is it, how is it you put yourself out? How do you describe yourself? And why is that important?
Yeah. So I make it really clear that my work is fat positive and anti-diet and health at every size informed. So as a, liberation guide is fairly a general term, but my work does revolve a lot around body image, especially when I'm working with women. And so saying that I'm fat positive means that I think that there's nothing wrong with being fat. I don't use the word fat as a negative word. There is no negative connotation there whatsoever. Fat is just a descriptor like, purple is. It's just a descriptor. And I believe that people can be healthy at every size. That's, it's called HAES for short.
Yeah.
And anti-diet goes hand in hand with that because the research has proven that diets don't work. And I went on my own journey of, I'd been dieting for 20 years, constantly trying to change my body, trying to lose weight. I'm very familiar with that world. And it was always driven by some much deeper desire and a very like synonymous correlation in my mind with healthy equaling thin.
Yeah.
It was just always directly connected. And I have since learned that that's not true. You actually can be healthy at every size. And that when we pursue dieting, like active weight loss, as a way to feel better about ourselves, dieting is a cycle. It's cyclical and it really never lasts. And the weight, research has proven over and over again that the weight always comes back. And when we look at the media and, mainstream culture, especially in America, the narrative is that we're doing something wrong if the weight comes back. It gets put on us. And I was shocked whenever I first learned, wait, research says this. Why do we not hear this? Why have I never heard this before, And so my work is really, I approach things from a very you are wonderful just as you are kind of approach. Very, very much so aware of the desire to lose weight, where that comes from, the drive for dieting, very familiar with all of the wellness world, very familiar with all of those desires. And it's very hard to disconnect the idea that being healthy equals being in a small body, in a smaller body.
Yeah.
And that's a very hard process, which I am very familiar with firsthand and can support people through, that journey. But that's why I was mentioning that most likely someone would probably not come to me and say, hey, I want to lose weight. Can you help me with that? It would probably be more of a conversation of, hey, KaRonna, I constantly feel the desire to lose weight, but I don't want to feel this way anymore. Can we work together to kind of get me over this? Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, this is Jess. I'm just taking a quick break, and I want to make sure you know about the guide I wrote about how to talk to your partner about sexual concerns. This comes up a lot in my practice. People have struggles, and it takes them so long to bring it up with their partner. They're afraid that that conversation is going to go badly. Their partner's going to be upset. The partner's going to be defensive, or they just don't know how to talk about sex and sexual problems. Common problem. So I wrote this guide that really helps you address this. It helps you prepare for the conversation, how to introduce the conversation, and then tips about how to actually get through the conversation so that you can change things with your partner as a team. If you are interested in this guide, you can find it at bettersexpodcast.com/guide. Again, bettersexpodcast.com/guide. Happy to send it to you. So what do you think are some of the ways, if somebody's still in this mindset of, I need to lose weight to be attractive, to be healthy, to be sexual, and I think what you say is it would be nice for them to be over here where it's about acceptance and confidence and, freedom. What are the impacts when they're still in this sort of weight loss diet mentality versus the freedom they might have? How different is it going to feel if they're over in the freedom liberation side of this?
Yeah, it's going to feel drastically different. But I would say I don't particularly approach it as one is better than the other, because I totally understand both places, and it's all just, a journey, and it's cyclical and, things like that. But I think it's going to drastically impact the way that they interact with themselves and the world around them. Because oftentimes when we're in a space of, I want to lose weight, we'll just use that, one thing as an example. It really is, there's an undercurrent of, I need to change myself to be accepted.
Yeah.
Whether that's in a sexual relationship, whether that's, I just want to be attractive, whether that's, whatever the root is there, it's usually I feel like I have to change me in order to be good enough. And having that core belief, having that as an undercurrent, it really starts to suffocate our lives because it's like a poison and then it infects everything. Because if I feel this way about my body, it's very likely that it really breeds a sense of codependency in life. Like, oh, I need to make everyone else happy. My job is to make everyone else happy, to make them attracted to me, to make them happy with me, to make them love me, to make them pursue me. And that's a very small box that we put ourselves in. And it's really impossible because we can't do it. We can't make everyone happy all the time. And so then we constantly end up beating our heads in these spaces of like, but I'm doing everything, but I'm, and, fill in the blank. And then, the result that we believed would happen when we changed our body, it doesn't happen. And using the example of the correlation between losing weight and I want to lose weight so that my sex life will be better. It might happen. That might be true. But will it last?
Right.
And that becomes, and no one can answer that. Like, that's really just a journey of trial and error, of learning on your own. But the thing is, and when we're saying, I need to change my body so that I can have better sex, who are we changing it for? Oftentimes people will say, I'm doing it for myself. I want this. I want this for me because I want to be healthy. But the reality is, what is healthy? What do you actually believe, healthy is and thin enough and good enough? Because once you get there, there is always moving.
Right. It's a moving target. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And when we can operate from this place of self-love and of wholeness, we show up in every area of our lives aware of the people that we love and are interacting with, and that we want, of course, them to be happy, but we don't make ourselves the person responsible for their happiness. I don't need you to accept me because I've accepted me. If you accept me, that's a nice addition to my life.
Right. So what do you say to people whose partners, either they worry their partner is not attracted to them if they've gained weight or their body has changed since they got together, or maybe the partner's even said that. Like this comes up in therapy sometimes with couples, and somebody says, oh, I hate to say it, but, just struggling to feel sexually attracted to you now that you put on X number of pounds,
Yeah. I think first it's really important just to, which I know you do this in your work, but just to meet that with a lot of compassion. That sucks.
Yeah.
That's a terrible place to be for all parties involved, whichever end, a person might be on. Maybe somebody is the person who's like, wait, I'm in this, relationship, and now I'm not. Like, what do I do? I love this person, but I'm not attracted to you. Those are both, it's terribly hard to be in those positions. And I think that it's totally normal and very natural for people to desire, I want to do whatever it takes for me to change this. I want to do whatever it takes for me to be in a place where you like me again, you're attracted to me. But I think it's really important to think from the beginning, when we have, clarity and space to do so, about the long term. Because if we're changing ourselves now, it's the same thing about with weight loss. If we're changing ourselves to have some outcome, well, what if the outcome doesn't happen? What if, it's successful for this long and then it stops again? Like, there's so many caveats, and I believe that there really is a way for a person who's in the position of being on the receiving end of that, for their partner saying, I'm not attracted to you anymore. I think in a really healthy dynamic where conversation is happening really well in a relationship, that you can just openly talk about that and say, this is the case, this is what's happening, and this sucks. This sucks for everybody. And I think it's really valuable for the person on the receiving end to be able to get to a place where they can be okay with that. And that, I know that almost sounds crazy to think like, how do you be okay with someone that you love, that you're in a relationship with, not being attracted to you, especially when you want to have sex with them? Like that's hard.
Yeah.
But I think the value of getting to a place where we can be okay with that is, it's not, if I am the person on the receiving end of that, it's not my responsibility to make them attracted to me.
Mm-hmm.
Their desire, what they are attracted to and their desire, that's them. That's on them. That's within them. And it's not a blame game. It's not at all a blame game. It's just, okay, my body has changed and I'm okay with my body. If you're not okay with your body, what are you going to do? And how can we work together to get to a place where we can still have intimacy, where if sex is something we both still want, but we're not attracted to each other, what does that look like in this relationship? Like, what other things can we do besides intercourse where everybody, is feeling good? What can we do? There's, coming up with creative solutions, because it's okay for someone to not be attracted to someone else. It's okay for people to have different preferences. Those are okay things.
Yeah.
And I've been through this myself. And what really happens is it ultimately begs the question of personal value. Because what happens when you're on the receiving end of that, which I've been there, is it makes you feel like, it can make you feel like, well, what is my value in this relationship now? Like, am I good enough for you? Am I worthy? Am I lovable? And it creates all of these questions inside of the relationship, which I have found are often fueled by our external narratives of what it means to be in a relationship, what it means to be a sexual person, what it means, like all of these definitions that are kind of at the core of the way we think about things, which is, the mental component.
Right.
Unpacking that to kind of reframe, no, my value is not based on who's attracted to me. No, my confidence is not based on what other people think of me.
Yeah.
That's a really, that's hard. That's a big
shift. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I talk to people about too, is that visual impression, visual attraction, seeing somebody and feeling attracted is just one of the reasons to have sex. It's only one of the things to be attracted to. And I think of it as sort of low-hanging fruit. If you have this young, fit body, sure, that's easy to respond to, or a new relationship or taboo or whatever it is, like all that's easy to respond to. But there's stuff higher on the tree than that. So even if somebody isn't visually attracted to me, it doesn't mean there aren't other reasons to engage in sex and intimacy. And, it doesn't all hinge on what somebody looks like anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And for the person, I think, for the person who might be feeling that way, like, oh no, I'm not attracted to this person anymore, that's an invitation for them to do personal exploration about their, own beliefs around attractiveness and desiring someone. And because along with what you said, there are multiple forms of attraction. Right. Like physical is low-hanging fruit. Then what about, the way this person is a parent, or what about the way they handle money? There's so many ways to be attracted
fundamentally
to
who they are inside their body.
Exactly.
Right? It's less about the body itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if their physical aspect is really blocking you so much, why?
Yeah.
Why is that blocking you so much? Can we how can we unpack that? Can that be reframed? Can a person change what and who they're attracted to physically?
Yeah. And what about somebody who wants to maybe lose weight or change their body, and it is a little bit more for them? I get that it might be hard to untangle our sense of how it affects other people or what they're going to think is desirable or attractive. But maybe they're low energy, or they don't move as well as they wish they would, or their mobility is affected, or, they're feeling impacts maybe of changes in their body that they're not liking just for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance there, right? There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of variation. And I think I tend to take a both and approach a lot of times. So if, things like physical mobility or aches or stress or things that are, often can be correlated, we commonly correlate with body size. If those are really pressing issues, there are other ways, that you can both and it. So if it's, mobility, what would practicing chair yoga look like for you in your current body? What would it look like for you to start walking around your house once a day? Really small things that you can incorporate that don't require you to have a gym membership, that don't require you to go, run a 5K, small things. Because oftentimes what the HAES community and the HAES research has found is that oftentimes a lot of especially the physical, I'm calling them external. It's like muscle, like not particularly like medical issues are often correlated with like a lack of access. So a lack of moving, a lack of having diverse nutrition. So there's ways to approach nourishing our bodies while not necessarily having to focus on losing weight. But I think for someone who is just generally wanting to lose weight, first of all, I mean, to each his own, right? Like I'm not out to get anybody that's trying to lose weight by any means at all. And I think that it's really important for each of us to pursue what we believe is going to be, the best for us. And I think there's absolutely ways where we can integrate, like where that needs to be integrated for various reasons.
Yeah. All right. So would you be willing, I'm imagining listeners who have struggled with body image, felt self-conscious, felt uncomfortable. It's blocked them to some degree from intimacy, or at least being fully present and enjoying it and not just worried about what they look like or something. Can you paint a picture of the alternative? Like how it would feel, the kinds of things they might be thinking, like, to at least invite them into this vision. Again, it's up to them whether they accept it or, you're not here to talk anybody out of anything, but can you sort of paint a picture of what it's like to truly feel liberated?
Yeah. One of the biggest changes that happens is in your thought life. So maybe before there's a lot of thoughts about what other people might think about you. In a moment in the grocery store, at a family reunion with your partner, there's a lot of awareness of others' gaze on your body, on yourself. When you go to a store to try on clothes, you have, this really revolting reaction, when you have to pick a size that you don't like, or when you're in the dressing room and you don't like the way it looks. And there's just dread and all of these really strong feelings associated with seeing yourself and your body. And that really then consumes a lot of your thought life especially if you're someone who's on a diet, then it's like, what am I going to eat? What can I eat? When can I eat? What kind of food? Watching the scale, the numbers. And then when you move into a space of liberation, those thoughts just evaporate. It's a process. It's not just like, oh, poof, they're gone. That would be nice. We would just need a button.
You're working on that one, right?
And when you get to a space where you are confident and in yourself and you love all of you and you accept all of you, there is no concern about what section of the store you're needing to buy your clothes in. There is no concern about which roll is showing where when you're wearing your favorite dress, because hot damn, you love that dress and you're going to wear it anyways. When you go to have sex, I was going to say in the bedroom, but you can have sex anywhere.
Right.
Whenever you go to have sex, it's purely an intimate desire or just like a purely like sexual, I want to do this, I'm like here for this right now. And what that person thinks of your body, whoever you're interacting with in the moment, is completely off your radar, because you want to have sex and you want it to be with that person because you love them, because you think they're hot, because of whatever your reason is, and gosh dang it, you're going to make it happen. And if in the situation where they say no or they reject you, you've reprogrammed your mental space, so you know that it's not personal. Like, your automatic reaction is it's not personal. Your automatic reaction is, oh, they must be tired. Okay. Your automatic reaction is, sucks for you. I guess I'll take care of it later. Like, there's no self-loathing that happens. There's no self-hatred. There's no self-shaming. And you don't have to live in a space of constantly fretting about your food or about your appearance, because you dress how you want to dress, whether that's wearing sweatpants all day or whether that's dressing up every day, and you do it for you. It's not about what other people think. It's about you being fully, authentically you, and it allows you to interact with every component of your life from a place filled with so much love and joy, because you are aligned within yourself, and you are grounded and peaceful within yourself. And it's kind of like you're just floating around, although obviously life still happens and it's hard sometimes, a lot of the time. It creates almost a sense of like, I'm untouchable in a way, because my value, my confidence, my calmness, my peace, all of my things, they're no longer externally dependent. Yeah. They're all within me.
All right. So for anybody who wants a piece of that, how do they talk a little bit about how people could work with you or how they find you? Like, what do you have available in terms of supporting people in that journey?
I do one-on-ones in 3-month containers, because it is a journey. It's not take a course, here's your answer. And there's information about that on my website, which is just KaRonnaLynn.com. And that's really the best way to reach me from my website, and people can join the email list, and I send things through there. I have an Instagram account. I am on Instagram, but currently, for the sake of my own liberation, I've been taking an extended pause from social media. Yeah. There's a lot of unnecessary noise there for me. Right.
Great. Well, I'll put that your website link in the show notes too, so people can find that. So thank you so much for being with me.
Yes, thank you.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question-and-answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.